when they love John Cena so much and he turns on them, they're gonna hate him just even worse now. Because I trust, right? Your worst enemy is somebody that you trusted, not someone that talks some smack online. You know what I mean? It's someone that turned their back on you that you trusted, and that's what happens in pro wrestling when that face turns heel. Like you trusted them, and now they turn their back on you. Now you probably really hate them.
That's how they were talking up Bret Hart because he had just turned, I guess, and all the kids were sad that he'd now turned, and the commentators were talking to him like that way. So
And what I think was really good about that is that Brett was never really the bad guy. Right in Canada, he was actually a good guy, and he was standing up for what the Americans didn't want or whatever. And right, that saying that's going to make you a heel, right? You're calling people out. That's going to make you an incredible heel. Um, but I always liked Bret Hart's heel because it wasn't the typical, you know, I don't know, tie you up and bury you, I guess, type of heel, you know, Joker style. So, but yeah, really good. Thank you, Rhea, for giving your thoughts on that. Who is next? Who did I call out next? Who had some thoughts on the homework? Was it Kristen? Let's hear what you got.
Okay, there you go. Okay, I kind of like Max. I saw the Billy Robinson versus the King Kong Bundy match, or the Bundy match, and what was very interesting was it did end up going by disqualification. Unfortunately, with the way the camera was pointed, you didn't see the ref do the count out, and you couldn't quite hear him. So there was a bit of confusion at the end. But it's kind of interesting the way that Billy Robinson kind of sells Bundy's power. How he after a move that or at least after his holds don't work, he's constantly like trying to analyze the situation. He's looking up and down. Then he tries something new. Nope. All right, I gotta regroup. Okay, and I noticed Bundy was doing a couple heel moves, like an eye rake and also the slap, but it was always out of retaliation.
Right.
Like for example, when when Billy Robinson cowers and then basically acts like a cocky dick and slaps Bundy, Bundy gets frustrated, grabs him, gives him a single club, and then lets him go to basically be like, "Hey, what the heck, man?" And even like pays him back for the slap later on to let him go and basically be like, "You slapped me, this is what you get." And what was funny was that club to the back did get called back later in the match, where Bundy basically, after taking a bit of heat, just kind of goes, screw it, tries to club Billy Robinson again. Billy Robinson kind of nopes the heck out of there.
You know, like, so those little subtle differences in wrestlers, right? We think, right, the white hat, black hat, heel, or face. I always tell people that even though you're a face, that doesn't mean that you're a goody two shoes. Where someone smacks you in your face, what are you going to do? You're going to smack them back. Someone hits you in your face with a chair, you're probably going to grab the chair and smack them back in the face, right? Never use chairs. Let's put that disclaimer out there. Never use chairs. But if someone did that to you, even if you're a good person, right? You gotta, right? You can't allow that to happen. You can't, right? Because now we're gonna enter the world of bully syndrome, and now this person's gonna bully you forever. So you have to stand up for yourself, right? That kind of thinking. And so I like that you actually saw that, because I always preach to the students about, don't think about the face about being just that goody two shoes. You know, it's like someone smacks you in the face, you can retaliate, right? If they're gonna gouge your eye, right, then you can go ahead and do it to them because they did it, and it's because they did it first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wouldn't do it because I wanna fight fair, but right, if they're cheating, then I have to even the playing ground, you know. And so I think that and then the second thought behind it is, we're good guy, face or heel, it doesn't matter. We're all pro wrestlers, you know. And I think when you think about a pro wrestler, and I think it's obviously evolved from when I grew up thinking about what a pro wrestler is, brother. You know, it totally has evolved, but that's just what's in my head about what being a pro wrestler is this larger than life, um, character that you wouldn't want to mess with, face or heel. So I'm really glad that you actually seen that the retaliation of it, and I think that that's a really good point in pro wrestling, because it adds more to the element of who you are as a personality and as a character. Let me let Jezebel in here. So, what did you get a chance to watch any of the Bret Hart or Owen Hart or Bret Hart versus Rock?
I saw the Brett versus Rock one. Unfortunately, I was trying to look on the network for the Owen and Brett one, but I couldn't quite find what you were
I
talking
will.
about.
I'll find it tonight and I'll put it up there, and then we'll see about maybe we'll watch it during class so everyone can watch it. Sometimes it gets a little choppy on the match review, but we have some tricks that kind of help that out. But yeah, Bret Hart, I think you can't go wrong with Bret Hart. Some people may say, and I think I've been guilty of this also, saying Bret Hart's boring, right? Compared to when you're comparing him to DX or Shawn Michaels, at least in my eyes. But looking back at the legend that is Bret Hart, it's like I don't think you can ever go wrong with any Bret Hart match, and that doesn't say that there's not going to be any bad ones. Because if you don't have any bad matches as a wrestler, you're not trying hard enough. You don't have enough matches under your belt, is how I believe it. Because I've seen there's a lot of bad matches from anybody. And then once again, what's a bad match? It's all perception, right? I don't see Bret Hart having a bad match because he's botching. That'll be absolutely a bad match, and I don't think you can have perception about that, unless some people do cover up their botches extremely well. They really do. Sometimes we watch whoever you watch the pay-per-view. Did anyone watch Raw, AEW Dark, AEW Tonight, NXT Tonight? The great wrestlers will mess up right in front of you and you won't even notice it. They will notice it. They'll go to the back and they'll be pissed at themselves that they messed up because they think everyone saw. Chances are nobody's seen. No one saw it. And that's what I like about my pro wrestling is it's a little bit more rough and tough. It's not just smooth sequence. So if you ask me, would I wrestle like Billy Robinson? No, probably not. I would implement all those cool moves and innovative moves that he's doing and put him into my type of style of wrestling, whether it's a little bit rougher. I think maybe he moves a little too smooth and fancy, but that's what makes Billy Robinson who he is. And that's why people like watching him or don't like watching him. So I think Sage was on there that had some thoughts. Sage, and then Living Zed will be next, and then Sean Hart and Joe. Joe is there too. So Joe, before you, Living Zed.
No worries, they can all go. I didn't actually say anything, but I just thought Billy Robinson was great to, of course, watch some catch wrestling. Yay! It's always awesome to watch a little bit of that because I don't know, you don't really get trained with that enough, so to actually watch a little bit of like shoot and stuff to protect yourself is always fun to watch.
Yeah, and a lot of the ways to do it is really just kind of get in there and roll around. Like whenever there's a CIF ranked wrestler that'll come into the dojo, like I'm always, or even a jiu-jitsu artist or anything like that, I'm always excited to get in there and say, well, where's my skill level? Like, right, I haven't taken any jiu-jitsu. Didn't take any wrestling in high school or anything like that. All I know is I'm going to get myself killed in this ring by whoever if I don't try to out wrestle them. And I always try to implement that and see, and then really just watch some of these wrestlers, how they move. I'll watch a lot of Olympic wrestling. And so I'm not classically trained at all in any of that type of wrestling, but I can totally hold my own when it comes to anybody that really has been trained in that. And I think obviously that's 25 years of doing it. So you better be a fucking black belt, dude. But I think if you say, hey, there's not enough doing it, man, or taught it, just go in there and start rolling around. How can I escape? Thinking about, right? Because all wrestling in general is made up, right? Which way can I go? How can I get out? What will work? What won't work? And that's how, like, actually that's how I would do it, right? If you ask me, well, how can you get actually good at grappling or submission wrestling or anything like that? Well, I would watch a lot of the UFC. I would watch a lot of the Olympic wrestling or the collegiate wrestling. And then I would go back and implement it. And then I would sit there and nothing I did was right. Like I would think the closest I could get it, but I would figure out which way is it smooth for my body to move. which way can I shoot a leg takedown faster? And so when I started thinking that way, I came up with that. Does it look good? Does it make sense? Is it safe? And that's something that I came up with, because I would always say, well, Supreme and I aren't doing it traditionally, right? From that you would learn from a wrestling school, but does it look good? Does it make sense? Is it safe? Yes, yes, yes. Then do it. And so that's why I preach that, and that's why I preach that to the students also, because we want to evolve and make new moves. So I would encourage you to really get into the ring whenever you get a chance, and try to mimic what you see in catch wrestling. Not saying that that's what you're doing. Try to mimic it, and I guarantee you, like, you will start getting better at it. What'll happen? You'll start making the sage fighting style. You really will, right? Because that's all these fighting styles are. What works, what doesn't work. They're all made up. Trial and error is really what it comes down to. And we can do that in pro wrestling. We can do that in fighting, right? That's why there's like the UFC style fighter now, or MMA, I guess you would call it. Before there was just a boxer, or just a wrestler, or just a taekwondo guy. But now it's like, you pretty much, if you want to be an MMA fighter in UFC, you have to know everything.
I think wrestling's kind of getting like that too now. We've got, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. Everything's kind of mixed together, so you kind of are getting a little bit of everything out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, right, you have to stay ahead of the curve as a student of the game to see trends like that, what's working and what doesn't work, right? Because you have Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, and then you have Orange Cassidy, who's wildly successful, and it's two opposite. And I think that, to me, that's what I love about pro wrestling, whether I may like or dislike Orange Cassidy or not, or may dislike Josh Barnett's Bloodsport or not, but I love that that's everything in between we can do, and go that far in professional wrestling. That's what I love about it. I could be the voodoo guy, so that's what I love about wrestling. So but good to hear your thoughts on that, on Billy Robinson and the catch wrestling, right? Because I think that's right. If you're not a fan of collegiate or Olympic style wrestling, I think, right, if you keep watching it, you will become a fan of it, because you'll start trying to mimic the takedowns. And I think that's something that we also should be watching, is the MMA and stuff like that. So that way we can mimic the selling. We can also now try to take some of these moves, like Undertaker took the ogoplata, the shoulder move, and he implemented it into his match. Now maybe, and I guarantee there's some people that are just going to love Undertaker as is, and then there's some people that are like, oh, I did not like the MMA era Undertaker. That just wasn't me. I like the biker taker. And you asked me, I was like, I didn't like the biker taker. I like the purple glove, gray glove Undertaker. That was me. But that's the beauty of wrestling. Going back to, remember we talked about superstar Billy Graham changing his character? Look at the Undertaker. Went from the biker to the MMA guy, right back to his money, which was the Undertaker, and there's even different eras of Undertaker where he's wearing a mask, I think, where he's got a goatee, no mustache. And so but yeah, there's, right, as a seasoned wrestler, and if you guys and gals ever get the opportunity or chance to be in the business that long, and I hope you do, you will see yourself go through that. You'll find something that really works, and it's just going to become to the point of, like, I don't care about that. I want to try something else, right? You're going to say to yourself, I do not want to be typecast. Just like you hear actors say, I do not want to be typecast. That's why I'm going to change it up. And even though I'm wildly successful at this, I'm going to be biker Undertaker now, or MMA Undertaker. And I'm pretty sure people went, okay, I still like him, but I wish he would go back. They would probably, at least that's what I heard. So in that. Mr. Joe, what are your thoughts? Did anybody watch Ricky Starks and Jesus Christ, Christopher Daniels? I talk about wrestling for 26 years, right? Christopher Daniels must have been in the business 7 years before me. And look at this guy go, man, 50 plus and going strong. I mean, I applaud him for that, because it's not easy. It is not easy. I get up and down the ring sometimes at 42 and think, oh my gosh, I'm sore. Really, this guy's taking bumps. And still doing his split-legged moonsault. Jesus Christ. I mean, this guy can go. Mr. Joe, is that who we're asking us? What did you think, or what did you watch? What's going on, my friend?
I saw it was Billy Robinson versus Dory Funk, and I also saw the Ricky Starks versus Christopher Daniels match. So I think the biggest difference was the presentation. I think the modern match was very. It was portrayed more like a traditional match. I feel like it had like all the match elements, whereas the Billy Robinson match, it was more, I guess, like a sport, like catch wrestling. I was seeing chain wrestling like after the heat, and I think the psychology behind that match was trying to be in control of your opponent. Basically, there wasn't a lot of spots. There was hardly any running spots. It was very grounded. Like they did a lot of technical wrestling throughout the whole thing. Whereas in the Christopher Daniels versus Ricky Starks match, I think after the first couple of strikes got thrown in, it kind of just like devolved into like, okay, so we're not wrestling anymore. Now we're fighting, and I think that's I guess like that speaks about like the different eras. Like I guess like the more modern era is like they didn't do a lot of like flashy moves, but they did do a lot more high intensity stuff like as the match progressed. And they did what was it? They did like the cutoff where he got caught by the elbow coming in from the second rope. Like whereas I don't think they ever climbed the ropes at all in the Billy Robinson versus Dory Funk match. Like I think they just kind of kept it in the ring, and it was very. I did notice that they kept going in the middle of the ring too. Like they kind of wanted to be in the center of the ring, and they didn't wear knee pads. So I guess like that's like the biggest like takeaways I had from that match.
Right, two different spectrums right there with the Billy Robert. You talk about wearing no knee pads. What I always tell the wrestlers, and hopefully I've told you this, Joe. Hold on a sec. What I always tell the wrestlers is you wear the knee pads not to slam your knees. It's to avoid the mat burn, right? And if you think about that, right, I don't recommend slamming your knees ever in a match. Not saying that Billy Robinson didn't. I'm pretty sure he did, and you can slam your knee onto the mat, right? It does have a 2-inch cushion. But let's take, for instance, a splash, right? And most people will splash from the top rope or from the ground, whatever it is. And what they try to do is they try to hit their hands, right? The way Eddie Guerrero did, and he popped his elbow out. That's number one. And then they try to hit their knees right at their side, so like they can kind of protect the wrestler. What I say to all that? Fuck all that. Really. I'll brace up. You just splash me with everything you got. And as a matter of fact, don't hit me just with your stomach because your legs and your knees will still hit hard. Hit me more with your upper stomach and thighs. And that'll really protect your knees, and you'll really give me a blunt splash. And so I never recommend anyone ever hitting their knees. They're always there. The knee pads, I think, should always be there just in case. Maybe you're getting up on the outside, right? That's not going to feel comfortable getting up on your knee and on concrete. So like I always tell my wrestlers, don't get in the habit of slamming your knee down. I get it. There will be some instances that you have to, but don't think your knees are indestructible. You only got two, and you got to protect them. And once the knees go, forget it. Like pro wrestling is going to be real rough for you, So I would always say never slam the knees. And so like whenever you've seen me get in the ring, I don't have any knee pads, right? Oh, there's a grizzled vet. I'm not going to work, but I would work extremely hard. I don't need, and then I started realizing I don't need to hit my knees. I'm doing leg drops, or I'm getting body slammed. But I will not slam my knee whatsoever. And so that's why I actually stopped wearing the knee pads. I think that we started wearing the knee pads because the ante of wrestling got upped, right? They started going to the top rope more. You mentioned that they didn't even go to the top rope, right? I'm pretty sure there was cards that people never even used the rope, right? We go back to using the cage in MMA, right? Imagine someone got superplexed off the cage like that. They would not allow that to happen. No way. Get out of here, right? And so what pro wrestling evolved was from real wrestling matches, right? With George Hackenschmidt, back in the day. And the wrestling matches where everybody was good, and if you're really good, then you get into stalemates, and now these stalemates in your match become an hour, 2 hours, and what is an hour, 2 hours, even three? They would go up to 8 hours sometimes on matches. What happens? It's boring. This is boring. I don't want to watch it anymore. So then they started fixing the fights, right? Probably, I don't want to break anyone's heart, but probably the same way they do MMA today, right? I'm going to say maybe the ref's not in on it, maybe the other fighter's not in on it, but it's like that scene from Pulp Fiction. They're telling the guy, in the fifth, your ass goes down. That's it, and no one else knows about it. And so the guy, and there's crazy, stupid people out there, just like you and just like me, who want to get into pro wrestling and get slammed off the top rope. Right? Your doctor would say, get out of here with that. Don't do that anymore. That is not right for your body, but we want to do it because we love it. Right? So there's people that are crazy enough to actually go out there and take a hit to the face and go down, really, and say, I'll just get knocked out. I'll let them hit me as hard as they can. There's people that are out there that like that. And I do see that in MMA, that there are fixed fights. I was and this was in the early 2000s when I was going to New Japan dojo out here in California. These guys got sent to Brazil to do a fight, and they were in this legitimate MMA magazine. And I talked to my buddy, and I said, hey, so is this a work or a shoot? And he's like, oh, 100% shoot, and we're going out there and we're really fighting. Talked to the other guy, and he was like, I'm just a starving wrestler who's living in my car. And so we asked him, I remember his name was Shane. I said, so we asked him, hey, is this work or shoot? He goes, oh, no, it's a work. We're all going down there and we're losing. We just got to go a certain number of rounds, but we got to take a hit and go down. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's not going to end up in a legitimate MMA magazine. And it did, sure enough, the next month. And it kind of really broke my heart because I loved UFC and MMA and what was the Japanese one? Pride. I used to watch that one a lot. And kind of broke my heart, but it also made me realize, well, pro wrestling started out 100% real and evolved to what it is today, right? We're talking about how we can build these highs and lows in a match. So anything else you want to add to that, Joe, about what you've seen? Good. Who is Living Zed might be next on some of his thoughts on Billy Robinson. What did you think? Billy Robinson, the Bret Hart match, or even the Ricky Starks match?
I watched the Rock Bret Hart match. I'll try and be quick. I liked that it was really easy to see all the different parts of the matches that you described, like the heel face entrance, the shine, the cutoff, the heat, the comeback. It ended in a DQ, so you didn't get to see the full formula play out, but it was easy to see the transitions to follow along. I thought so. So with Billy Robinson, that was the first time I've ever watched his matches, and obviously, like everyone says, very old school, very slow. I watched the King Kong Bundy one, and then I saw another. It was like it was more clips than a whole match against Carl Gotch, and just to see the catch wrestling. I'm a big music fan, and especially like metal, and it almost like paralleled it for me, where that old school style wrestling is like original old school heavy metal, slower, like Black Sabbath. And then you got to like Metallica, where that's sped up from Black Sabbath, and that's like the Attitude Era wrestling. And now we're to like faster even than that, people trying to do every move they can, all the spots. For me, I like death metal. That's like as fast as you can get. In metal, it's always like faster, louder, harder than the bands before you. Even your own songs, when you play a live show, you try and play it faster, louder, harder than you recorded it live. Like that's just the mentality.
And those.
So I think for wrestling, I think you're always trying to one up the people before you by doing more. And I had the mindset when I was watching all this stuff that you had really had us say less is more. And so watching the old guys, they definitely did less, but it still put out the same emotions, the same feelings for the crowd, put out the same story. Young, now modern wrestling, they're trying to put more into there. If they're good, they can still put out that same story, even with putting all the moves they want into it, but they don't put all the rest holds like they used to back in the old day. But because I like all ranges of metal music, I almost still see like there's a place for everything, because there's still bands that play. Now we just call it heavy metal. We don't call it old school, just heavy metal. And then there's bands that play faster, as fast as they can, and that's like death metal. But they could be playing on the same show. So you might see somebody doing a full catch wrestling match on the same show you see a lucha match. And I think that's totally awesome. But I also think you got to know your audience. And if you try and put a lucha match on in like the Midwest, or I'm not sure myself, I haven't traveled to. If you try and put an old school match on down to Mexico where you're there having a lucha show, they might boo you. I think that you're boring, and they
You
came to
know,
see some lucha spots, So
they might boo you. Well, I always tell people this, right? So you always, because I got a really great opportunities to go to all over Mexico, Mexico City, Monterrey, like pretty much every major city in Mexico. And I always went down really nervous and saying, "Wow, looking at all the guys, incredibly great, lucha style, lucha based." And what I would always try to be like, "Oh, I got to try to do something like what they're doing." What I realized was I got to go just do what I do because that's why they booked me, So I totally understand, know your audience, but at the same time, sometimes give them your heart, give them what you've been giving them as your heart, and I don't think you can go wrong. And that's what I realized, and I had my most success was just actually being myself and not trying to keep up with the quote unquote luchadors that were doing all the cool stuff that I could barely do, you know?
maybe it's more the promoters and the bookers who have to know their audience and who
Yeah.
to bring in, not you as a wrestler changing your style from territory to territory. So,
And I think
and
that
then
you bring up about the metal bands, right? You bring that up, and I'm pretty sure everyone you're listening to today has listened to Black Sabbath, and so it goes the same thing for everyone here, right? You have to watch the greats, not just the icons that everyone talks about today, but everybody, that has come up, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna say, wow, like Ozzy Osbourne has influenced so many death metal bands, even though that's not even what Ozzy Osbourne was, so and I think that's the same
exactly.
thing with you. Just because you're watching catch wrestling doesn't mean that's going to be what your style is.
I
So
think
I
what
think
you were
it's so
saying with the
important.
other guys, the bringing the old school style into whatever you want to do, new lucha, that still even in the death metal title, they're fast the whole time, but then they'll have a little part where they'll have a breakdown where they get really slow and just kind of like a throwback to old metal, and that's how I listen to it. And so you could have a part in your match where you're doing some catch wrestling. I still think you can bring that in and still do lucha in the same match.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing as you can have, Mystico on a AAA card, and then also Black Panther. And Black Panther is going to go out there, and it's going to be majority of mat work in a lucha match. It's all mat work is what Black Panther will do, on the same card, and people love it. And that's probably another one we should watch is Black Panther because he is a master when it comes to just, wrapping people up in a pretzel,
Like I really
So,
like Angelico that same way that he does all the
mhm.
lucha submissions. So
Yeah, those lucha submissions that Skyad is teaching a lot of people really go a long way, So, good. Thank you, Living Zed, my friend. I try to call you by your gimmick name, because
cool.
uh, I don't know many of my wrestling friends by their real name. I mean, maybe a little bit more now because of Facebook. But yeah, I don't know most of my wrestling friends. His first name, I know it's Damien666. I think his name might be Jose Leonardo Gomez or something like that. But that's Damien, you know. But yeah, and I say, oh man, that's the mark in me. When he actually requested to be my friend, I was like, who's this Jose Leonardo Gomez with Damien666 face paint on? Who's this Mark? And I said, oh, wait a second. He's got a real name. I mean, he didn't come out the womb as little baby Damien666. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, that's the mark in me, thinking that's this guy's name is Damien666. But that's why I always really tell everyone by their gimmick name. It probably helps me to remember it better. Sean Hart, what did you think? What are your thoughts on some of the homework that we watched?
All right. I saw the Carl Gotch. Can you hear me? All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw the Carl Gotch match, and I haven't really heard anybody else say this, so maybe I was watching the wrong match, but
No.
some of the spots, it was very few and far between, but the innovative like spots that they were doing, like it kind of reminded me of the cruiserweights almost, as in like the creativity and the timing and stuff. I mean, it was very slow, like comparing it to the King Kong Bundy match, slow pace and everything, but it was very different, and I was very surprised. The
That's-
Ricky, go ahead.
That that's what I same thing that you caught, Sean, on that was what I caught on Billy Robinson when I watched it. Yeah, it's slow. Yeah, right. It's a little rough at times, but then when he's hitting his stuff, you're like, what the hell is that? You're like, what year is this match? And you're right, because he's doing some stuff that you're thinking, really, this was done in the early 70s or the mid 70s, and you're just thinking, it blew my mind away to really think and go, wow. I don't know anything about pro wrestling. Like, really, I don't. You think you know it all, right? Just like they say with Roddy Piper, and then all the questions are changed as soon as you think you know it all, because you're like, wow, I thought this was modern wrestling. When you're like, no, it's really people just cop in. Roderick Strong, a lot of his backbreakers are Billy Robinson. A lot of it is. And it's like, well, that's the new era of Roderick Strong. And it's like he's just bringing back, recycling what's old. And that's probably right, and that's what's harder today for today's wrestlers, right? We'll always compare the old school to the new school. First of all, what is old school? I used to turn on K Earth 101, and they used to play Pretty Woman and Brown Eyed Girl, and that would be called oldies. Now I turn it on, and it's like stuff from the 90s and 2000. I'm like, oh, this is the oldies station. So first of all, what is old school? Don't know. Right? Old school versus new school. But at least we know this in the new school is that it's a little bit harder because everything's already been done. Everything's already been done. What can you do to be different, right? And so as we keep going and get newer, right, you're going to see a lot of what we might say, oh, this is garbage wrestling, and they could be better. It's because they're trying different stuff to be creative and throw different stuff to the wall, right? We can always recycle, and they always do recycle. And you'll notice, like, wow, this angle that I've seen today was done 20 years ago. And if you've seen it 20 years ago, it's probably done 20 years before that. So on and so forth, but yeah, that's kind of my takeaway on just letting you know about that Billy Robinson and that style. What was the next match you saw? You saw Ricky Starks, or what was that?
Oh yeah, I saw the Ricky Starks. I was just gonna say it was probably the first time that I could, like, knowing the things that I know now, like following the match, and it basically hit almost every single point on the match breakdown. So it was like a light bulb in my head, like, oh damn, like I'm actually learning something, and I can see it and follow along and digest it instead of just like absorbing it and just watching it.
Right, you can actually see it break down, and then now, don't think right inside that box of just this is the way to call a match. Right now, if you understand a formula, right, one of many different formulas to call a match, right? I think what was Joe saying? Joe was saying that there was hold to hold after a spot, and this is different, right? Different psychology. There's many different ways to call a match. But also, if you understand this formula, you'll be able to now break it down, add something else, change it out, interchange it, make it different, make it your story and how you want to tell it. But I think also, man, Ricky Starks really surprised me as I don't know, he probably has been wrestling for 10 years. He's probably a 10-year vet. I haven't seen him probably until probably this year, to be honest with you. But it's a fresh air for me to watch because I see all the elements he hits. He tries to make everything mean something. He definitely goes with the less is more. He doesn't need to get his quote unquote shit in because his shit is being him. He is getting his shit in. Being out there in front of the camera is getting his shit in, and just doing the mannerisms and the personality and character who he is all of that, right? Like we always say, a promo is more and even better than a match. Sometimes as we're wrestling, we think, man, just doing a promo sucks, but it really lets you connect with that crowd, and they're actually going to know you more than someone that didn't have a promo. But yeah, so that's what I was hoping that would actually do for everybody, is that the light bulb would go off and you would understand it. And then once you go through wrestling school and they say, hey, coach says, all right, do a match, you really understand what to do. First thing to do is just follow someone's lead. but sometimes it's easier to know why you're doing it as opposed to just doing it. And I'd always would try to drive that point home. Why are we doing a drop down and a leapfrog? Because it's the drill, right? Of course, I get it, because it is the drill. But why are we actually doing it in the match? Well, maybe because Big Van Vader is coming right at me, and Big Van Vader is like 400 pounds, and I need to avoid contact, or I'm going to get run over by the Mastodon. So I better drop down. Maybe I could trip him, or I better leapfrog and get out of the way, you know? So I always like thinking about the understanding on the whys of wrestling will actually help you a lot better in your journey, right? As opposed to just do this. Okay, just do this. That's what I was always told. You know, just do this, just do this. And it would, I wouldn't understand why. I would just, oh, we're just doing it. Get up left. Why? You know, well, you don't want to just get up left. You want to create distance is really what you want to do. Any other thoughts that you had on that, Sean?
No, I'm good.
All right. All right. So, do we get to everybody that wanted to talk and give their thoughts on the homework and what you thought about it? I know we had some.
Just me, Joey, as well.
Shane, what time is it? 10 p.m. Wednesday night over there, or what? Or morning?
It's
Thursday
7
morning.
a.m. No, it's 7 a.m. in the morning.
7
Yeah.
a.m. Thursday morning. All right, Abu
Yeah.
Dhabi. What were your thoughts, my friend?
Basically, with Billy Robinson, I've seen a lot of it because Irish wrestling would have been influenced a lot by the British style anyway. So what I ended up watching with him was Vern Gagne versus Billy Robinson. And I only got to see about half of it. It's like 44 minutes. But what I noticed and what I thought was really cool was they spent the first 10 minutes. It was basically just working an upper wrist lock. And you can see by the two guys, because they're legit shooters, that they're testing each other, which was really, really cool. Like, I think like the NXT UK especially, they've got their own show now, and they're really harping back to that old school catch wrestling, because it's the only thing that's going to make the NXT UK unique, as opposed to the American NXT or Raw or SmackDown. So I think it was really cool. Like if you have an appreciation for it, obviously when I was younger, I wouldn't have an appreciation for it at all. All I wanted to see was flashy moves, but because I'm learning it now and because I'm training as a wrestler, it's really, really cool. Like there's a couple of reversals that I'm definitely going to try and use myself. And I
How long,
watched
Shane?
Ricky.
How long have you been wrestling? Well, you said a year.
4 years.
4 years.
4
Okay.
years. But very
So-
on and off, though. Very,
so-
very sporadic because of moving to Abu Dhabi, and we had a company in Dubai and it closed down, and we all had like a year and a half off. So I'm trying to get some consistency, you know.
So you mentioned that, like, you know, at first you wanted to do all the moves, you know, and now like you have this the utmost respect for the catch style or the hold wrestling. And I mean, that sounds just like me. And I think maybe a lot of wrestlers will go through that, right? You want to do all the cool stunts, then you start gaining this incredible amount of respect for the actual hold portion of wrestling, because you can understand it, you can understand the struggle. I think the same thing for MMA, right? They always want people to knock somebody out. I love when they go to the ground and just start grappling, and that's even. And then a lot of people will say, like, if they're not educated in the sport of it, why are they just laying there? You know, they don't get it. And that's what I used to say. Why are you just rolling around? That's terrible. Now, that's all I want to do when I get in the ring. You know, well, for one, I don't want to bump too much, because I know that I can get the same bang for out of my buck by actually just going hold to hold and telling a story, and really you don't even have to bump, you know, that really taking that idea of less is more. And it's more like, it's right. It's a human chess match, especially when I get in there. It's a human chess match of really, like, there's sometimes we go in there, and we have it on here to talk about the work shoot, but I'll go into the ring and I'll try to just shoot a takedown on somebody. And I think Joe has been a part of that, when I'll just shoot the takedown on them, even Sage and maybe Jezebel in here, and Hyde, of course. When I'll just shoot the takedown, and I won't tell you what I'm going to do. I'll just go in there and just try to take you down. And I'll have a certain way of grabbing that waist lock and then tripping your thigh to go flat on your stomach. And it works every time. And I've actually noticed that it works, even when we're grappling, right? And we're actually shoot wrestling, and we're not working with each other, quote unquote. I will shoot that takedown and take somebody down. Where did I learn? I have no clue. Does it look good? Does it look good? Does it work? Yes. Okay, then I'll use it. But I have that incredible amount of respect and competitive spirit when I get in there and wrestle. Like I'd love to wrestle you, Shane, and just really go at it as a human chess match. And then when you get me, it would mark me out inside and be like, man, he got me. Like I didn't understand how am I on the floor? Like what happened here? You know? And then what I'll try to do is like, what did he do to me? I'm gonna try to do that to somebody or even him, you know, and try to learn from it. Because of that competitive human chess match, and I just love it. And I actually like doing it in front of a crowd, right? Because I'm calling this match, and I think if we hit some of these elements, we know what we're supposed to do in the match. We can hit the elements and not even do a running spot. The spot can be wrestling spot. He puts me in a move and I counter. He puts me in a move and I counter. Puts me in a move, I counter. Right till he hits me with the big, you know, I don't know, flying armbar or whatever the case is, you know. So, but yeah, you just reminded me. It sounded like myself when you said I just want to do all the cool spots in the beginning, and now I really love and enjoy watching the competitiveness of the hold-to-hold wrestling. So,
But I think even like one of my favorite matches is like Lesnar versus Angle at WrestleMania with the botch at the end when Lesnar lands on his neck. Besides that, what I loved about it first was the first 10-15 minutes, the two guys basically shooted, or they went as close to a shoot as they could. And they had 10 or 15 minutes of a match gone like that.
One of my favorite matches is Angle and Chris Benoit, right? We don't talk about him, but man, you watch that match, just study it. And then Eddie Guerrero, Angle versus Eddie Guerrero. I didn't like the ending with the shoe thing and all that, but that's pro wrestling.
Yeah,
right?
the shoe comes off.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I wanted to, right? I felt like you guys felt. I wanted to see an ending. What's this draw shit, right? I didn't want to see him with his boot off. But anyways, I think it was about the first 7 minutes of at least the Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle match, and they're doing what I like to call the work shoot, where obviously they're not shooting on each other, but I'm not just going to give you the move because you're moving into a headlock. You're going to have to earn the headlock and actually take the headlock from me. And then there comes to that point where I know I'm going to fight you on the headlock, but it'll come to that point once I know I'm beat, I'll let you take it. And so when you start doing that, the wrestling looks, are they shooting? You start saying to yourself, because this doesn't look like 1, 2, 3, lock up. 1, 2, 3, throw the arm away, headlock. 1, 2, 3, wrench it. You know what I mean? It looks like, man, and you can tell first 7 minutes, I think they do a powder. Powder is when they leave the ring in wrestling. And they take a walk. I think it's Kurt Angle or maybe Benoit takes a walk outside, and you could just see the redness in their face. And you're like, man, I'm red like that when I'm working out overdrive and I'm working out really hard. And just to do that work shoot wrestling, it takes so much energy out of you. So like, so much respect for Angle and Brock and Guerrero and all of them that have been able to do that type of match. And then at a certain point, what happens, Shane? It breaks into a pro wrestling match. Yeah, exactly. It breaks into a pro wrestling match, and now they're running the ropes. But you say it was first 15. I gotta watch that. I'm gonna write that down. Brock Lesnar. I mean, it's been years.
Yeah, it's the WrestleMania match, the one that's famous for the botch at the end.
Right, and then.
But like, it shows more. They have to go to a pro wrestling match to try and beat each other. So they've tried to do an amateur match.
Right.
Neither one. They both came out looking awesome and obviously matched like tit for tat. And then it breaks down to a pro wrestling match. So it gives even more respect to the pro wrestling side because you're like, right, I've tried to, shoot on you a lot of like fireman carries and takedowns and things like that. And then it's like, okay, now I have to hit the ropes. Now I have to do the moonsault from the top. Now I have to do suplexes. You know what I mean? Or the angle slam. And it's just, I love it. I love that match.
And the greatest thing about these pro wrestling moves, like especially the hold for hold, I don't know about a stunner. I'm pretty sure it can work, or an RKO, but the hold for hold wrestling moves, for the majority of 90% of them at least, they're all legitimate moves. Whenever I do a fireman's carry, like if you ever get in the ring with me, I won't tell you fireman's carry. I'll just take the fireman's carry because it's a real move. I should be able to just put you in the move, and I think like I do that. Right, I think it scares my opponents, but also we're supposed to look like we're in a fight, we're in a struggle, and so sometimes even when they try to fight it, doesn't matter. Fireman's carry is a real move. You know, Joe, speak on it.
There's this move I started doing. It's called a question mark kick, and I got it from like Muay Thai, where you kind of feint like a toe kick in the gut, and then you hit them with a roundhouse to the head. And I started doing it to people, but I wouldn't tell them I'm hitting them in the head. Like I would just control it, so I would like give them that tap. I wouldn't like actually shoot on them. And people always like I've noticed that people expect that toe kick, so they kind of brace for getting hit in the chest or like the stomach, and then I hit them in the head, so it looks very real because like it looks like I baited them into it. And I just noticed that like when I don't tell them that, it looks so much cooler because it looks like, oh, I actually got him with a feint. So just to piggyback off what you were saying.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's a big thing is about pro wrestlers is being able to read what's coming the way. You know, when I got a chance to wrestle on Raw as an extra, and I wrestled Snitsky, and we had a 60-second match, and this guy's like, "I'm gonna give you the clothesline." Cool. You know what? Comes back an hour later. I'm gonna give you a big boot. Whatever you want to give me, that's fine. I'm gonna give you the elbow, right? And I think like in the match, he did a completely different move, and he called 3 different ones, and he did a completely different one. But you have to have the ability to just read. I know I'm gonna bump. Doesn't matter what he throws at me. Throw cross body. I just got to bump. You know, and being able to read the match creates that organicness. You know, and especially what they were delivering Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar about that quote unquote work shoot. You know, it really builds that, and I think we need that in our match because, like we say it, 1, 2, 3, lock up, 1, 2, 3, arm wringer, 1, 2, 3, wrench it. Right? It's real in the realm of wrestling, but now when you really want to up your ante and now separate yourself and how people talk about Kurt Angle or even Chris Benoit, right? He murdered his wife and kid, and people will say, "Well, his wrestling was so great." We talk about it still, you know, because of that. You know, so when when you separate yourself, it makes you such a different wrestler and competitor, and people will say that you're real. You're real, right? We all wrestling's fake, wrestling's predetermined, wrestling is this, that, or the other. But then we have those wrestlers that make us believe, right? You got Eddie Kingston who will make you believe in his promo, or you got Brock Lesnar. Fuck yeah, he's gonna suplex city each and every one of us, right? Probably the nicest guy in the world. You know, they usually are. But yeah, so just that building that organic, you know, portion of it. I just want to talk about that since you brought that up, Shane. But building that part of the match, I think is so important, and it's a human chess game, and you're I'm not saying you're killing time, man. You're putting on some of the best work, to really be honest with you, in your match when you're filling your opponent out. And I think the fans really get into it because we see the competitive edge in it. We see the competitiveness in it, and it's different. Usually, it's different than the last match. Now, if everyone's doing the Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle stuff, then I would say let's do some Doink the Clown shit. Really. That's what I would tell you guys. You got to go different. You know, you have to go different, right? Because then how are you going to stand? I mean, okay, they got Kurt Angle. Are you going to do this better than Kurt Angle? Maybe you will. Chances are probably not. You know, so do something else. Be opposite. That's why I'm preaching to you today. Sell facial expressions. Slow down. Less is more. Why? Nobody does it. No one's really doing it right now, you know, so just be a little bit different. And then when everyone's doing slow facial expressions, less is more, then I'd say wrestle the way they're wrestling today. Throw 50 super kicks in a match, you know, throw the bumps, don't sell, jump back up and hit another move, right? And I think that's what the Young Bucks did. That's how they created a whole company, right? Competition for WWE is just really rewriting the book of psychology because nobody was wrestling like them at the time. Now they started a whole genre of how people wrestle, you know. So anything else you want to add to that, Shane?
I just watched the Ricky Starks and Christopher Daniels one as well, and I just noticed that after the heat, he just came into a comeback, and I think there was like literally like 1 or 2 false finishes, and then that was it. There wasn't any like hope spots for Christopher Daniels, which I think was class because it made Ricky Starks look really good and dominant. Like his finisher was the finish, and that was it. I've seen him in NWA Power as well. Ricky Starks, he's class. He's really good. he doesn't do flashy things, but he doesn't have to. You know, he's a proper heel. So yeah, that's it. That's all I've said.
Yeah, right. You don't have to be flat, right? And I'll say it again. I've been saying it. We do all that flashy stuff for us. We do it for us because we love the wrestling. And I could preach to you all day about less is more. Don't do all these flips. You're going to do it. So I just go ahead and as a coach and say, get it out. Get it all out of you. And just like Brody King, after he did a moonsault and broke his leg, I say, don't leave your friggin' feet, man. He broke his leg, and he's like, oh, now I get what you're saying. Yeah, because I would love to be 6'5", 300 pounds, and I wouldn't do nothing. Doesn't mean I wouldn't work hard. Man, I could just stand there and just be this monster and this imposing, presence, in pro wrestling. And I think he's learned that, I think
I
he's
say I
learned.
love Brody doing the lucha stuff though, so
Oh yeah, of course. Right. I think that let's be honest. That's probably
that's
what
like unique about him, right?
that's what got him his job at Ring of Honor was that he was able, this guy can do a springboard up, right? Guy holding his arm. He does a back bump on the rope, bounces back up to his feet, just blows my mind. I'm like this guy, but keep it on the ground, man. That's cool that you can do it, but keep it on the ground, kid. But yeah, so and I think he actually realized that, but knowing that he can do it because there will come a time that there's going to be a badder big man than him. He goes to WWE, and they got The Undertaker and Kane and Braun and all these guys. Okay, well, what can you do to stand out? Because everyone's doing the big man thing, Brody. All right, maybe he's going to do some lucha stuff. And if you got big enough guys to do it, maybe it'll make more sense. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's just wrestling, right? Becoming that student of the game and evolving and just learning. You're going to go through the trials and tribulations. You're gonna do it wrong. Of course, we want you to do it wrong. In order to find that roadmap to success. How can we how can we do wrestling at all? Everyone tried it and made an error out of it and fixed it and made it better, and that's all we can ask. As long as we're better today than we were yesterday, then we're on our way, right? Is if we're not advancing, then we have a problem. So all right, let's take a look here. You know what, Matt had a question that you posted. What did you ask, Matt? You asked about, I think Timmy Chimmel? Timmy Chimmel? What's his name, man? Tony Chimmel. Tony Chimmel, the live events ring announcer for WWE, was released among other people this week. And your question was what, Matt? What do you think about shows? What are your?
It was basically just if the how do I say it all of a sudden? If the road circuit on major promotions is gone, how does that affect how contracts and things like that are going to be structured in the future, do you think? And then there was a side question on there that I never even wrote down, but since the Biden election is probably going to go through, do you think the government trying to get into unionized workers is going to be something that actually takes place? Those are huge questions, so we don't even have to talk about it.
No, we will. So right. I mean, with right, Biden's already saying I'm gonna make a nationwide mask mandate, which leads me to believe, right? And now WWE, right? Was it Linda McMahon had somebody working in the Trump office, so they're probably seeing the writing on the wall and saying, look, there's going to be no live shows coming, probably within the next year, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe that's what Biden might do is close everything down. For us in California, I don't know if it's going to be much different. I think the other states are going to go do what California's been doing. No gyms, no movie theaters, no indoor restaurants. I don't know how other states are going to do no indoor restaurants, right, when it's snowing and freezing outside. But that's going to be something that's going to come. But I think what it leads me to think is, right, live events, right, for pro wrestling. I think they probably will still get away with shows with people at whether it be SmackDown or Monday Night Raw. I think that may still come through, but as far as the house shows or the live events, that's going to be probably some time coming right now, you know. And I think like that's a lot of things that what I do is I follow the trends of what these huge companies are doing, like what's going on right now, and try to catch up and say like, well, am I going to be able to open my school, or am I even going to be able to run live events or anything like that? If it's not, you know, television or pay-per-view or anything like that. So that's what I think with, especially with WWE firing a lot of the road talent. Yeah, there's probably going to be no live events, but that probably there's going to be live Monday Night Raw with fans. I probably still see that coming. Just the way they're doing Monday Night Football, or you know, they didn't do it with basketball, but I think baseball, the end of the last couple of games, they definitely had people there. And probably WWE will go to the states that will allow it, but we'll see with Biden coming in the office if he will allow like Florida to actually run these shows. He might change stuff. We might not see AEW Dynamite. They might be from an undisclosed underground location, you know, right? Because they still have to submit their stuff to the television networks, and that could still be done. But they may be, you know, I don't know. They may not allow them to. So we'll see how it plays out with this COVID. You know, it's I know a lot of us been waiting for 2020, but right, or 2021, but it's going to probably keep going. You know, I think right. They say 12 years is an average for a vaccine. 12 years, and they say maybe like, you know, 3 to 5 would be extremely fast. So we'll see where it goes. Right. This is what this is the cards that we're dealt, and we'll go with it. Unionization in pro wrestling. It's been talked about for years. It's been tried. Will it happen? I would only assume that it's gonna happen somewhere down the line, you know, especially with people calling out Vince McMahon and saying, you know, these people can't do their Twitch or stuff like that, but you're still calling them independent contractors, right? And so I think there may come, when push comes to shove, there may become some unionization, which would be great for all the pro wrestlers. It really would. Um, would it be great for the pro wrestlers that are wrestling now? No, probably, because it'd be so different, so regulated. They wouldn't be used to it. For all the new aspiring wrestlers coming in, yeah, I think so, because you don't know any difference about how independent or even national wrestling is run right now. So those are kind of my thoughts, and I hope that kind of answers your question, Matt. On well, at least what I think about may happen. So. Um, but all right. So, but yeah, I really dug that everybody watched the wrestling, had a good idea about it. Um, I liked hearing all your thoughts. Really, I liked hearing the kind of really catching what I wanted you to catch of the uniqueness of Billy Robinson, or even the breakdown of the match, whether it be Ricky Starks or the Bret Hart match, and just really what we've been talking about this last week and a half about match breakdown. And how it is, and just really giving you that idea. So when you have your opportunity to go out there and do, you know, your first match, a training match, you will have an incredible idea and be, you know, ahead above the rest, really, with this information. And this is stuff that I wish that I had. I didn't know any of this. I don't know, 15 years into the business, to really be honest with you. So you can get around the business and do a lot of cool stuff without knowing so much. But you're not as confident. And I would always be scared to get in the ring with somebody that knew, you know, that would eat my lunch. And I try to avoid it, right? Show them what I can do, not what I can't do. And then I got caught up one day, and Kid Cash just pressled me up one day, and I had no answer for it but going to the ropes. So really learning a lot about professional wrestling has really helped me in becoming, you know, a better professional wrestler in general. So something that I also want to talk about, and I know we haven't probably talked about it in about a week, is working out. Working out, and I think I told you that I would post the card workout, and I don't think I actually did. So maybe I'll post it right now in the card workout. If since I didn't post it, I hope that you have been doing the core exercises. Right, we don't need any weights for these core exercises that we're doing, because we could talk all this wrestling until the cows come home, but really, we have to put in the work on working out, because professional wrestling is not fun if you don't have the air and you gas out or you blow up in the match. So I'll go ahead and post that. I can't find it right now, but I'll post it after the class of the deck of card workouts. But just to give you a breakdown, You get your deck of cards, right? If anyone's read the Jericho book, then you already know what I'm going to say. Um, and you have four suits. So you got your queens, your diamonds, your clubs, and your spades. And so each one is going to represent maybe a push-up, a squat, a jumping jack. And what I would do would be pro wrestling get-ups. That's what I would do. You don't even know what that is right now. And so I would do those. So every time I flip the card, and it's a 2 of hearts. Okay, that's the push-ups. Do 2 push-ups. Oh, this is easy. Flip the card again. Oh, there's a 10 of spades. Okay, well, that's 10 squats. Flip the card again until you get to the whole deck. And all right, 10's a 10, and then a jack's 11, queen is a 12, and then obviously a king is a 13, ace is 15, and jokers are wild at 20. So when you pull the joker, and then sometimes, man, I go, wait a second, I'm taking the jokers out. Like when you're in the middle of this workout, you're like, this is easy, this is simple. You start doing it, you hit the middle of it, you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. When am I gonna hit a 2? Give me a 2. Come on, a 2. And you're, oh, God damn, a king. And you look at it, and then even sometimes you take the card and you go, I'm going to set that one to the side. Let me pull something else. But you put it to the side, you still got to do it, right? Because that card is your coach. And the card tells you you can't cheap out. You got to hit this right now. And you can cheat yourself, but we don't want to cheat ourselves because we want to what? We want to treat ourselves. Treat yourself, don't cheat yourself is what my coach always used to tell me. So let's get those workouts in. Let's keep working out. And it's not even about having the guns, big shoulders or anything like that. It's really working your heart and your lungs. And that's the bottom line, is working the heart and the lungs, because we can't do any of that. We can't even get through a 7-minute match if we don't have our air, and we're not going to be able to. And so the deck of card workouts, even this core exercises done in the circuit training, those we have developed. Not even developed, or we took it from my buddy Smiley, who works at WWE, and I said, hey man, he works at NXT. I said, give me all your workouts, buddy. And so he gave me the workouts, and then so I implemented on what do we actually do in wrestling, stuff that we actually do, right? We lift, right? And we normally, we could even have to pull sometimes in wrestling. So we're just really trying to implement a lot of these things that we do, so that we don't gas out or blow up, as we say in pro wrestling. So let's make sure to prepare ourselves, because even the first day, even though you're going to have a long journey, the first day is going to be tough. You start doing these rolls, and if you've never rolled, first of all, it's going to make you dizzy, to make you want to throw up. Then they're going to make you do 300 to 500 squats. And if you ever seen a baby deer being born and trying to walk for the first few minutes, that's how we all look, doing 300 to 500 squats, like you can't walk. And then usually Coach Chaos will say after those 300 squats, all right, run to the gate and back. And everyone's just like, Jesus Christ, I can't even feel my legs. And everyone's just kind of wobbling through it. But it teaches you, I don't ever want to feel that again. And so what do? You either sink or you swim. And when you swim, you put in the work, so I can't stress that enough about putting in the workouts and preparing yourself for going to wrestling school. So
Coach, do
Yes,
you
sir.
have suggestions for sitting workouts? Because as a guy who can't stand up or do like burpees and stuff, I can't do push-ups either. I mostly just do sit-ups and bands and stuff. So if you got some workout stuff, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
If that doesn't take too much of the time.
Yeah, I totally right. Obviously, there's the bench where you sit down, and you would do a number of workouts, right? You could sit down right in your chair, and you just lay your arms right there, even with the biceps, starting out whatever weight is gonna work for you, and just doing that, right? That concentration curl, just like that, just as if you're sitting down. Even if you have your bands, right, we can now start doing this. Even really, this is what Tracy Smothers taught me, was the Tai Chi. And that's just really flexing and pushing, right, the invisible weight, and then now pulling the invisible weight. And man, you'll be like, get out of here, Tracy. Get out of here with that. And next day I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sore. You've never done it before. It really does work, So I'll write down some stuff, and I'll go ahead and send it to you for sitting down workout and what you can do. Even strengthening the neck and stuff like that, neck exercises that you can do. that'll really help you out. But yeah, I think everybody probably should be doing that Tai Chi, just really flexing and pushing the invisible brick wall and bringing it back. And you're like, geez, that's a workout. You really realize it, and it's going to help you because when you put somebody in a chin lock, right? It's not just a chin lock like this, right? You got to really flex it, and you're actually really flexing your muscles, and you wouldn't realize how much that takes out of your energy in the middle of a match, just really flexing and showing that I'm working this headlock or chin lock. But yeah, Max, I'll definitely go ahead and send you some sit down workouts that you can do.
Thank you, Coach.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
All right, so let's go into the lesson today. And now this is pretty much like a maybe a review. We'll see how much we can get through. We'll definitely be able to get through the whole lesson. I wanted to see if we can actually move ahead, but we'll see. It's about calling a match. And how can we do it, right? We already know about the elements of a match. So who can tell me when you call in a match, and don't speak it out, raise your hand, I'll call on somebody. When you're calling a match, what's the first thing you call? Kristen.
The finish.
Right, we call the finish, right? So we want to be able to call the finish for a number of reasons. Somebody else besides Kristen, do we know why we want to call the finish first? Does anybody know? Living Zed, you know? Let's talk to me, my friend.
In case you don't have enough time to plan out the rest of the match, you want to have the finish already planned.
Absolutely. There's a second reason why. Does anybody know the second? Joe, my friend.
You can build your match based off the finish.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So if my finish is a neck breaker, then maybe it leads me to believe that if I'm the heel, obviously, that I'm gonna work the neck. And as we get detailed, right, we also can give face heat, face heat in wrestling, right? So say it's Bret Hart as a face versus a jobber, and the jobber is obviously the heel, but the jobber is not gonna really give Bret Hart any heat. So what he's going to do is pretty much, like I always say, it's face heat, but it's really just an extension to the face shine. Face shine with heel hope. So most of that match would be face shine, heel hope, face come back, take it home, right? And the heel hope is like maybe he puts the boot up to put Bret Hart in in a predicament, and then now he does the comeback, right? And so it's really opposite. The heel just got beat up, didn't really do anything, but yeah, so there'll be extension of the face shine. But yeah, it will lead you to believe what I need to work, right? And then also, if you don't have anything else, we know what the finish is, and if we know this formula, then we can get through the match, right? Well, we just got to be creative now, and we have to just really work on the fly in the middle of the ring and call it in the ring, right? And that's a skill in itself. It's a skill in itself to call it in the ring, and to work on the fly, right? You can also call it in the back and then call it in the ring. You can work on the fly and call it in the ring for the first time right there. So those are incredible skills, and we'll see if we can get a chance to talk about it today. But we'll talk about this calling a match, right? Calling a match, how to call a match, what to call, and how to call it, right? So I think for the most part, we've covered most of this, but I want to just go over it again just so everybody knows, right? So the first thing you have to understand that there's multiple ways to call a match, right? I come up with this formula so you can understand the breakdown, and really, if you understand, it's like Daniel LaRusso from the Karate Kid, wax on and wax off, and not really realizing how much you're learning, and how much you will have the ability to be able to call this match in the ring on the fly on a moment's notice because you know this information. Obviously you have to now put it into practice and do it, right? And then what do I say? You have to make those errors, but you're going to be a head above the rest that maybe doesn't have this information, So, and what I always say, right, now that it's time to call your match, it comes a certain time in a pro wrestling's career where you have to grow up from being led in a match to actually calling the match, right? So if I ever got in a match with any one of you, right, for Rhea, Taylor, or Sean, or even Hyde, and this is your first match, what I want to know as a veteran or just someone that knows more than you, what I want to know is, do you have the ability to listen? Do you have the ability to follow direction? Are you easy to work with? And that's all you really have to know when you first break into the business is just follow direction. Kind of like when I was in there, and this wasn't first breaking the business, but when I told you about getting in the ring and training with Christopher Daniels, and he called everything and boom, called it so fast. And I was just proud of the fact that I was able to keep up. Could I call that like he did at that time? Heck no. Heck no. But I was proud of the fact that I was able to keep up. And so that's the same thing that you're going to need to have the ability is to have the ability to keep up with whoever you're at within the ring, right? It's like you want to absorb their energy. You wrestle me, you want to be able to keep up with me and absorb my knowledge to now go to another wrestler, keep up with that person, absorb their knowledge, right? Go to the next wrestler, keep up with that person, absorb their knowledge. Then it comes the time where you can do a match and you're very comfortable with a match, but it's because somebody has been calling it for you, you know? And you're going to have to go through that, right? The chances of you coming out of wrestling school and being able to call a match, it's possible. Usually about 10% of my wrestlers will be able to do it. I'm trying to make it to be better, but I think it's just everything is so new, right? Power bomb, correctly landing someone, correctly taking bumps. That's a lot of the stuff that we're worried about. But then now as it comes to actually doing the match, it becomes a different story. You know, and that's why I'd like to just put a lot of people in the ring and just kind of like go at them. And finding out, do you have the ability to listen? Are you easy to work with? Are you coachable? You know, so I want to find all that out before I even take the time um, to actually get into the back and call a match with you. I want to just actually see how easy you are to work with. When I would wrestle with Hyde or even Sage and Joe, I didn't get a chance to wrestle with Joe too much, but definitely Hyde and Sage, they and Hyde really especially because I got an extension with him recently is just uh, he was always so easy to work with. And I think Hyde was one of the guys who would say, yeah, I don't think Chaos likes me. But if I'm always calling on you to get in the ring with, I go, man, I'm an old guy and I don't want to get hurt. You know, and I know I could trust Hyde and he's coachable. He's easy to work with. He'll listen. He'll do what I say. And then even if I said, hey, Hyde, I need you to take over all my spots, man. You know, and then he would go, okay, well, I got to do what I got to do. This is what coach is saying. And I've actually done that before. I've been in the middle of a match. I don't know. I think I had an anxiety attack in the middle of the match. My heart's like, oh, geez. And I call over to Robbie and I go, Robbie. I couldn't even barely get out. Rob, I thought I was dying. And I crawled into the middle of the ring. And I said, Robbie. He comes over to me. We're both wearing masks. I go, Robbie, I need you to know my spot. Maybe I was just blown up. I don't know. I think it was just anxiety. And he goes, okay, boss man, which one? All of them. He's like, what? All of them? I'm like, yeah, all of them, man. He's like, all right. And he goes and he finishes the last 10 minutes of the match. I go crawl to the back and I'm like, I can't breathe. I got my head back. After the match, they all come running. Where's Joey? They thought they were going to find me dead. You know, even Eli goes, I looked under the ring. I thought you were going to be dead under the ring. You know, but I knew that I was able to trust Robbie, that he was going to be able to go over there and I say, hey, do my spots for me. Which one? All of them, right? I knew that I was going to be able to get in there with him. Well, how? Because I've been in the ring with him and I found that ability to trust him. And the same thing goes with with my students when I get in there. I want to get in the ring more with people that I'm able to trust, that are coachable, that will listen to me. You know, that won't just try. I want you to try certain things, but I will give you that opening. And then even once we break open a little bit more, I'll give you that opening more. I'll just say, hey, call it. I just want to say, hey, at that point, you'll understand, wow, when coach tells me to call it, he just wants to sit back. I just want to go for the ride, man. You call it. I'll just sell and do what you tell me. That's easy work now, right? And so I think when you have that knowledge, you're able to go in there and it has that time for you to call that match. For everybody, it comes a time. And you want to get to that point. I'm leading the match, you know, not in the veteran status of I'm grizzled vet kid. Let me teach you everything I know. Because when you're young, you want to teach all the youngsters everything you know. You really do. You want to help them out, maybe in a more of a chip on your shoulder way. At least that's how it was for me. And I know it is for a lot of wrestlers. So, but you want to come to that conclusion that you're building it up to your being able to call the match, right? How can we do that? We understand these elements. How to call the match. I had no clue how to call them. I don't know. Call spots? No, it's more than that, right? Right. So you're always gonna call spots, but this is taking it a step further in becoming the driver of the match. And that's what I always call it. I don't know if I've ever heard that from anybody, but I always say, hey, yeah, you're driving, right? I'm going for the ride. Yeah, I just gotta listen. Sometimes we'll both call it, but there's always a driver. There's always a driver. Like when I wrestled Jake Atlas earlier this year, right? Jake Atlas, very popular wrestler in the main event and most shows that he was on. Um, but when I wrestled him, he was like, "You're the driver." Like I was gonna do what I wanted to do. If he wanted to dive off the top rope, like I think a couple of times I just moved on his moonsault. Like I don't want to take your moonsault right now. Hindsight, I should have laid there for it. I think it would have made for a better match. But at the time, our minds are moving a million miles a minute. Maybe it's a little chip on my shoulder saying, "No, I'm calling this match, kid." You know. Yeah, there's always gonna be a driver in that match, and when you ever get in the match, right, get in the match with me, I'm gonna be that driver. But you want to get to that point where you become the driver, right? Just like in life, there comes a time that you got to start answering the questions rather than asking the questions. And that used to be me. I used to be the guy always asking the questions, didn't have any clue about wrestling, right? I wasn't traditionally trained, didn't have a school to go to. And now I'm the one answering the questions, right? There's always comes that time that you realize that, well, do I have enough knowledge to answer some of these questions that people are asking? Yeah, you do. You've been around the block a couple of times. You know what to expect, right? If you've already wrestled one match, and there's someone that hasn't wrestled a match, oh, there's a tremendous amount of information that you can give them to help them out. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to do the same thing Coach does. I'm going to give you the information that Coach didn't tell me that I should have known. And that's the same thing I try to do to you. I'm going to try to give you the information that I needed when I was coming up in this business, that I lacked. And I think you'll do the same thing, and you'll probably find stuff that I haven't told you that you'll say, hey, I needed to know this, and that's why you're always trying to become a student of the game. So let's go more back into this calling a match. So traditionally, only the heel would actually be the driver of the match, but today pro wrestling has evolved to where it could be the face or the heel, but just traditionally it would usually be just the heel calling the match. It's a little bit different today, but like everything, it evolves. But I'll tell you this, what probably doesn't change, and there's a reason behind it, is that the veteran is going to be the one that's calling the match, no matter what, face and or heel. So, someone's known more. And even if you have the ability to call a match, if you get a chance to wrestle somebody, like if I wrestled Tracy Smothers and I did have the ability to call a match, good one? Probably not. But I still did have the ability. You don't ever want to go and wrestle someone that's been wrestling more years than you and then just call the match yourself. I would have not students, but I would have wrestlers that would do that to me. And so instead of them learning something from me, they would just call their match, and I would just go, okay, like you don't want to learn, I'll just do what you want to do because I'm fine. I've done a lot of matches, Joe, Mr. Joe, you got a question?
Coach, in that regard, is it okay, like, if, like, say, you're the rookie, but you want to call a move?
Yeah,
say-
absolutely. You got to get your shit in. So like when Slice Boogie yesterday at Primetime Live, he wrestled Davey Boy Jr. And I told him right off the bat, because I never met Davey Boy, and I told him right off the bat, I said, hey, Mr. Slice, I said, do not let him job you out. If you do not speak up, he's just going to get his shit in. It's not his responsibility for him to say, well, this is Slice, and Slice should do this move and this move. All Davey Boy Jr. is going to do is just make sure to get his shit in, and rightfully so. So I said, it's your job, and I get it. Like, you just want to sit there and listen to the vet, but you have to throw in what you want to do. And if you got a nice vet, what do you want to do? And they'll ask you what you want to do. I want to do this kick, the spin wheel kick, or whatever the case is. And then the vet will take it and say, okay, well, let me put it, okay, you can do the spin wheel kick here, but maybe attempt it here, and I'll counter it, and I'll do this move to break it down, but you'll hit it later. And now you're part of the match. You're collaborating and being part of the match, but you're still following that veteran's lead because you want to absorb all the knowledge of how they're breaking down the match, right? You could say, well, Coach Chaos taught me this way. Yeah, but if you get a chance to get in the ring with Matt Hardy, shut the fuck up, right? Shut the fuck up, keep your ears open, and just listen to what he's got to say, because he may give you a whole world of knowledge different than what I've given you, right? But then if you speak up and say, I want to help call this match, he might be like, man, whatever, call the match. I don't care. But then now you're really cutting your hands short on that, because you're not really learning what he can teach you or what this wrestler can teach you. But you definitely have to be part of the match and call your stuff and get your stuff in. And that's what I told Slice. Ended up being Davey Boy was the utmost professional. He actually gave Slice a lot. And he's actually said, I'm going to have Slice kick out of the power slam. I go, really? And kick out of the power slam? Man, you're the British Bulldog, you know? And and I actually asked him. I said, "You're the British Bulldog. You really want Slice to kick out of your power slam?" And he says, "Yeah, it's just going to be that running one, not the over the shoulder one." If it was anybody else besides Slice, my student, I probably would have said, "No, I don't think so, man." But I looked at Slice and I said, "Yeah, if he's allowing you to do that, that's like respect." Right? The power slam is the British Bulldog's finisher, even though he's doing the different one. And he ended up doing the different one at the end and beating him. But I was like, that's really good that he's giving you so much, you know, and you got to be able to take it. I wish that Slice maybe was in the ring a little bit more, right? There's no ring to wrestle in, and he was just a little off on his game. I think if you watch it, it was a decent match. I felt, man, Slice, it could have been better, you know, and I gave him all the pointers that I could. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to wrestle that veteran, really speak up, just call your moves. Hey, I'd like to do this move. And if they say, "Hey, I'm gonna power bomb you from the top," oh, cool, because I could do a Frankenstein from the top first before that. You know what I mean? You're collaborating on it, but letting them call that match. You know. So traditionally, the veteran will call the match. Um, where do we start? We start the finish. We go backwards. Um, so for the most part, I love calling the finish and going from there, not because I'm a grizzled vet. I do it because I have less anxiety, right? I tell Jake, I can't remember all these spots that you're doing. So I like to really just call a finish. I know that other wrestlers are going to do it differently. You know, some wrestlers want to call every single move from every single stomp. I think that's a little excessive, to really be honest with you. I think you have to leave a lot open um, to build moments, to build your match organically. You know, I think that that's very important in professional wrestling. You know, so um, I like to call traditionally, really like to call like a beginning, middle, and end. Which would look something like this, right? So the face shines, the heel cuts off the heat, face come back and go to the finish. That's my beginning, middle, and end. And then you can also include, you know, false finishes here and there, whether that's at your discretion or at the promoter or booker's discretion. Um, but that's really what I would do. Beginning, middle, and end. Make sure to call the finish and then go out there and build it. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to lock up and give you a headlock. All we're going to say is tackle, drop down, hip toss. How do we get there? Well, traditionally you get there from the headlock, but we can get there any way we want. Really, all we know is we got to get to the tackle, drop down, hip toss. You know, then you got to get to, you know, we got to get to Tino's comeback. You know, and then from Tino's comeback, we just got to take it home, beginning, middle, and end, and that's it. And I leave everything open in the middle. Usually, a lot of my heat, I leave it open, so that I want to build something organically. You know, to pull I want to pull the emotion not only out of my wrestler, but obviously right out of my audience. And right, because the first thing we have to do is pull it out of the audience. So how can we do that? Well, let me pull it out of me first, right? I always tell everybody, you're cutting promos or you're making facial expressions. It starts in the eyes, right? And what you feel here, it has to come all the way up and come out through your eyes first. And right when somebody's mad or when Stone Cold turns on Mr. Pro Wrestler, you could see Stone Cold. He went from Steve Austin to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And how does he do it? He does it with his eyes. And I think that's how you're gonna start with yourself. And you start doing that, right? New Jack scares young Chaos, right? He yells, and he glares at me in the eyes and actually shows the crowd, oh fuck, is he gonna pull a knife out on me? Is this real wrestling right now? No, but he's pulling that emotion on me, like, wow, now the crowd saw, whoa, Chaos looks scared for a second right there, and now the crowd is really gonna feel that, right? And so I want to pull that out of my opponent. Really, it can't just be one-sided. You know, it could be a good match one-sided. It could be a great match if we're both on cue, and an epic match if we're hitting all of our points. You know, so um, that's what I want you to do, is just really fill the gaps. That's all you have to do, right? Because we train so hard in pro wrestling, and we put in so many hours in pro wrestling. that all you have to do is really just fill the gaps. Calling that one move, like when we called a match with Sage the other day, it was right here's the DDT and the crossbody off the top. Really, that less is more. Leaving it to really build something and cut your teeth. I tell you, I talked to you about cutting your teeth. I always would hear that, and I'd be like, what does that mean? Right? Like really cutting your teeth so that way you could be a great predator, right? Like getting your teeth sharp, sharpening your skills in the ring. And how do we do that? Right? Live instances in the ring, right? And because a lot of times we'll call everything in the back from every stomp to every elbow to every single punch, and we do it, and it looks like we've called everything in the back from every stomp, every punch, every elbow drop. So leaving those gaps to just build those moments in your match is going to make for such a better match and really give you the ability to connect with the crowd. If you want to go out there and do a stunt show, maybe call it all in the back, obviously, but to really build get that really motion out, leave those gaps in there. Call it beginning, middle, and end, and force yourself to work. Even if it's just holding on to a chin lock in your heat. What's my heat? It was just a chin lock, right? I hurt them. I hurt their neck on the turnbuckle, and then now I just put them in a chin lock, and now I'm working the chin lock, and the whole match is about them trying to get out of the chin lock until they do their shine. Just beating up that body part, leaving it to become organic. Because what you'll find when I had him in that chin lock and I really brought the match down and slowed everything down, no one thought it was boring. They actually started cheering for the face to get up, get out of it, fight back, stay alive. They started getting as the face, doing the pro wrestling thing. Big elbow, grab the headlock again. No, big elbow. And as soon as they're released, the fans feel it. And then now we go to our big shine spot, because what have we been doing previously? The heel slowed everything down and brought it down to a low. What does the face do? Build everything back up and get everyone out of their seat. And so even if you do a basic match like that, because you're like, I don't know how to fill the gaps, just like that. Lock on one move. You hurt the neck, now just grind that camel clutch for 3 minutes as your heat. You don't have to do anything else. Simple. Less is more. Really, because we want to bring them down to bring them back up. And who's them? The audience. So how do we call a match? Start with calling the finish. Less is more. If you must call the full match, call the beginning, middle, and end. And knowing the match breakdown and psychology is key to being successful at this skill, right? And then also let your match flow organically. You might want to do a spot. Maybe it's not there. Maybe the spot that you called in the back, and as you're sitting there across the ring from somebody, turnbuckle to turnbuckle, you may just have this idea and saying, I'm going to go for it. Usually happens, like if I'm going over there, Jake, I could do that where I'll say super kick and then maybe throw a running knee strike at him, and he'll just read it, and he wouldn't be pissed about it. He'll be like, hey, what happened? Oh, no, I came up with something else. But having that ability to build that organic is really going to take that match a long way. When Big Van Vader made it to WWE Monday Night Raw, he wrestled Fatu, who runs Knox Pro out here in Southern California, and he went to the top, and we knew Vader from WCW, so we started chanting moonsault, 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 and Vader was just going to do his Vader splash or Vader bomb, or I don't know what he calls it, from the second rope, and he actually looked back at Fatu and went, like, sorry, bro, they're calling the moonsault. And he went to the top rope and he did the moonsault. And then when we watched it, this is when Monday Night Raw was taped. They would do one live taping and then tape the rest of the episodes. So when we watched it 3 weeks later, they made it sound like they made it look like he never stopped and he went straight to the top rope. And Jim Cornette was saying, Vader's going to unleash this new move. And so they made it part of the actual match, because our dumbass is 5 people in the 5th row yelling moonsault, moonsault, moonsault. But it actually made it part of the match and gave Vader a move, and he just kind of looked at it and just said it was organic. This is what the fans want. This is the finish. I'm supposed to do my Vader splash or Vader bomb, but I think it's Vader bomb. I'm gonna do my Vader bomb, but the fans are calling for the moonsault. Give the crowd what they want. You know, especially if you're new to the company, the way Vader was trying to really get himself over. As a heel, you can also do it, right? They're calling moonsault, maybe go to the top rope and then flick them off and then go back down and do your move. I'm calling this match. So I think really leaving that open to just really be able to read a match, and leaving it open to call a lot of organic or even audible out. I think I told you about Shane Douglas, and I gave the super kick. Did I tell you guys that? Yeah, and right, I should have been smart enough to audible to know that I was at the highest of highs, and then I should have just taken it home from the super kick. But I felt no, but the finish was the finish. Doesn't matter. You should know better. Call the audible. Go home. You know. And I think that's so important to read the match, because if you go, oh, but we wouldn't wait, right? Because if it's a finish, you've been training to hit this finish. Like, you want to hit your finish. It's going to define who you are, right? And then you got Shane Douglas saying, no, take it home on the super kick. Oh, you got to fight that urge. And if you do your finish and you don't take it home, I'll understand. You know, and then you'll understand later and say, I probably should have taken it home. How many times Heather, Ruby, or Jake or Brody have said, you know what, boss man, you're right. And they call me boss man not because I'm the boss. My friend would rap and say, Chaos the boss, and he would rap and try to fight for how to rhyme chaos, and he would do this on the fly, and we would just throw words at him. Chaos, box, Dynamite D, and he would rhyme Dynamite D right there. We would just throw everything at him, and we always try to figure out how to get him into the ring to be a wrestler. I thought that skill of being able to anyway throw a word at you and you could throw it back in a diss, I thought was incredible. He's still able to do it. So, but that's enough time for today. We're actually out of time. What my music teacher used to say, used to play the sax in an orchestra. Time flies when you're having a great time, right? So that was a quick 2 hours. I was hoping to get to the calling the work shoot, especially since we talked about it today. But we'll get to it tomorrow, and then we'll also get to watching some of these matches that I have, and we'll do some match review with everybody here and actually see these all these key elements implemented in matches, right? And they're not in every single match, but if you understand it, it's really going to help you out in your journey into being a professional wrestler. So I hope you got something out of this today, and learning to be a professional wrestler. I do appreciate everybody joining me here on this Wednesday night when you could be watching AEW Dynamite or NXT. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take it out here. Santino's on three. 1, 2, 3. Santino. All right, so we'll pick up tomorrow, and then what I want to do, right? Treat yourself, don't cheat yourself. I'm not gonna supply any homework tonight, but I want you to look at some matches, right? You got to become that student of that game. All right, everybody, have a good night. Take care.
See everyone.
Good night,
Bye,
guys.
Thanks.
Good night.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys. Night.
Night.